States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all
citizens. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call. Casagrande is excused. Dumas.
Here.
Calhoun.
Here.
Olsenda.
Here.
McClure.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. We have one public hearing item. Madam Clerk, I'll let you collect the list and we'll see who signed it.
Okay, Madam Mayor, we have several people. The first person is Emberly Seward.
And Lily, if you could come to the podium and just state your name and if you're inside or outside city limits.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Emily Soul. I'm 13 years old and I live at 33548 Nash Road. I'm here tonight to talk to you about housing. We all know that Seward needs more houses. We're a community and we need to stick together. If we want people to be here in Seward, we need to make homes for them to live in. My friends, the Sabinskis, need a home by April or they'll be forced to move. I moved here 2 years ago and I'm finally starting to make friends. I love it here and don't want my people to be forced to leave because they don't have a place to live. We have the chance to add more families to our chain of Seward residents. My opinion is that people make Seward special. I'm grateful that my childhood memories will be made here and I hope that all of you will make it possible for my friends out there to make Seward too. Please do everything in your power to help more homes be built in Seward. Thank you.
Good job.
Madam Mayor, next signed in is Naomi Pelliceri.
Good job. I have moral support. No.
Yeah.
I'm Naomi Pelliceri. I'm an attorney for Chugach Regional Resources Commission, and this is our science director, Miley Branson. Thank you.
Yes.
And we just wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming grant application that we're putting in for the expansion of the hatchery here in town. So we're kind of in town and out of town both because I'm out of town, but she's in town.
Oh, I'll start. Do I need to be closer to the mic? Or is that?
I think you're good.
Okay, cool. My name is Miley Branson. I'm the Science Director for Chugach Regional Resources Commission, otherwise known as CERC. And we operate the Liability Marine Institute, otherwise known as APMI. I'm here today to provide public comment on Resolution 2022-17 in support of the proposed co-application to the U.S. EDA for CERC's expansion of the APMI facility located at 101 Railway Avenue, which resides on property belonging to the City of Seward. The Chugach Regional Resources Commission is a nonprofit tribal consortium formed in 1984 by 7 tribes of the South Central Alaskan region, and it's operated the Liability Marine Institute since 1992. APMI began as a shellfish hatchery with the goal of providing mariculture research and development opportunities to tribes, researchers, and shellfish growers alike. The organization has since expanded to numerous facets of marine science, including research, monitoring, and economic development. All of our efforts are focused on health and well-being of coastal ecosystems and their inhabitants with specific focus on tribal natural resource advocacy. Under new leadership, we have expanded our grant portfolio from $1 million to well over $10 million in funding within the last 2 years. In turn, our facility needs have also expanded, and we have grown from a Seward-based staff of 3 to more than 15. At this time, APMI finds itself unable to perform critical research and monitoring efforts due to lack of space and inadequate facilities. An expanded facility would provide increased capacity for research, increased year-round employment opportunity in Seward, and increased opportunity for engagement with local contractors, many of whom perform regular work at our facility. Additionally, the proposed visitor center in the new facility would contribute positively to tourism, expanding the breadth of our visitor opportunities available in Seward. All of these factors would generate long-term economic growth for Seward as a whole, and as such, APMI is requesting the support of the City of Seward as a co-applicant for this proposal. Thank you for your time and consideration, and Naomi is available to discuss the legal
So I'm here, I came just in case you had questions about the project or the legal setup or anything. This is a grant opportunity that only CERC can get in this community because it's only open to tribal, federally recognized tribes or tribal consortia, and CERC is that. It's up to $5 million, so that would be $5 million of jobs and labor coming into the community. The resolution in front of you is a resolution in support.
Thank you. We have lots of people speaking tonight. We appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, next signed in is Cindy Eklund.
Thank you.
Cindy Eklund, inside city limits. I wanted to speak in support of several resolutions that are on the agenda tonight. Resolution 2022-008. I just want to talk about that one. I mentioned the Seward Municipal Land Use Plan before. Tonight we will discuss that resolution for the Gateway Playground up on Dora Way. In August, when the Seward Planning Zoning Commission approved and forwarded the plan on to council for approval, our recommendation was what was in the plan over the last 10 years or so, retain land ownership and continue current use. And we recommended or transfer the playground to Jesse Lee Memorial Park and then sell for a single family home. The playground was to get moved first and then the sale. So one of the goals when we were reviewing the plan was to find additional property for residential use. So that was why that was how we worded that. And along the same vein, the Forest Acres Campground, which you're going to talk about in Resolution 2022-20 and 2022-21 regarding the development of the Hemlock subdivision, the Seward Municipal Land Use Plan has recommended for several years to continue the use as is or sell with a sound development plan. And that sell with a sound development plan has been there prior to our review of the plan in August. Actually, we reviewed it several times. It was vetted through public work sessions and meetings, so it isn't just sprung up on you, on the community. The need for residential property in Seward seems to be outweighing the need for a Forest Acres campground right now. The last resolution I want to speak in support of is 2022-015. I'm so happy to see the city improve their recycling activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, next is Carol Griswold.
Carol Griswold, inside city limits. Dear council, administration, and public. Seward has a lot of homes and potential housing, but the explosion and minimal regulation of short-term rentals, especially full house rentals, has been allowed to strangle our long-term housing market. Countless renters are booted out from their housing in April, and seasonal workers cannot find summer housing as the owners pursue the much more lucrative summer short-term rental market. The city's sale of city-owned land in desirable neighborhoods has failed in the past. All of the 5 properties on Monroe and First that were sold by sealed bid in 18 and 19 remain vacant, mostly owned by non-residents. There is no guarantee that any property sold will be affordable for locals or result in a home for a resident. Why should the sale of more city land be any different? Why should Seward citizens sacrifice their quality of life so that speculators can snap up property for future resale profit, second homes, or short-term rental businesses? The city is also competing with private landowners trying to sell vacant land within city limits. Currently, 26 acres by the schools and another 16 acres on Nash Road are listed for sale. A listing for 147 acres on Nash Road was recently taken down. No reason. It is not the city's job to compete with private landowners, sell off our treasured public land like the Doorway Playground, clear-cut Forest Acres Campground, and ruin the Mount Alice Bench in the hopes of providing housing. It is the city's job to extend city utilities to undeveloped, privately owned residential land and provide incentives and assistance to help active developers provide housing, like the Developer Incentive and Reimbursement Program, Ordinance 2205. It is the city's responsibility to rein in short-term rentals with code changes so people can actually live and work here. Please vote no to selling off the Doorway Playground. Vote no to the expansion of utilities to the Forest Acres Campground for the purposes of developing a 40-lot subdivision. Please vote no to the rezone and replat of Forest Acres Campground for a subdivision. Please vote yes to the Developer Incentive and Reimbursement Program. Help solve this housing crisis by tackling short-term rentals, not by speculating on the sale of our city treasures. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, next signed in is Joe Tugas.
Hello, Joe Tugas in City Limits. Here to speak in support of the CERC Bluefin Shellfish Hatchery Project. Luckily it's not the hot ticket item tonight. So CERC has been doing some really great things, and they have been for a long time, but I've got to know them a little bit more recently and what they're doing, and it's pretty amazing. It's out of sight, out of mind down there in the corner, but they got a lot of things going on there, and they also not only do a lot in Seward, but it covers the whole Chugach region. So from Cordova around to Titlick and Valdez, Chiniga, Fort Graham, Nanwalek, and Seward, and we've worked with them on doing some food sustainability stuff for the different villages, and they have this really cool opportunity to grow their facility and get $5 million or up to $5 million in funding to expand it. And I don't see any reason why that's not a great thing for Seward. It's going to bring lots of construction work and English-speaking projects for local community members to work there during construction, and then we'll have long-term, year-round employment for people after and stuff. And it'll get people like Miley out of the Connex that she's working in the park. So as far as I know, there's no financing or anything necessary from the city. It's all through a grant program. They just need the city's support in applying for that grant. That'd be a great thing.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else signed it?
Madam Mayor, I have no order.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on all items except the one item for public hearing? Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Ackerson. I live on Doorway within the city limits. I have lived here 33 years. We were the third house on Doorway project to be moved into. There are 55 homes from the bottom of Doorway to the water tower. Parents and children continually walk up and down Doorway to access the playground during the summer. I suspect it will be available before, I suspect it will be a while before the Jesse Lee property will be cleared of contaminants and available to start construction of a playground. It took the city 10+ years. My son was 6 months old. He was in middle school by the time the playground was finally available to play there. With the development of the new streets between Doorway and the high school, there will be more families in the area. By the time the Jesse Lee home playground is completed, new residents will already be established there. The Jesse Lee playground will actually draw children from the highway west on up to Doorway. Their area would actually support the need for both playgrounds. To take away the Doorway playground to add one home on an overpriced small lot with drainage challenges is not solving the housing shortage, but taking away a well-used recreation for our neighborhood children.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
You said except for what's on the agenda, or?
No, what's for public hearing? So the public hearing item is the Planning and Zoning Ordinance 2022-004.
Okay. Becky Dunn, inside the city limits. First, I want to read a comment from somebody new to town with kids. She says, "We spend a lot of time outside, and we are very rarely see other people with kids out and about. Just not much here in general. Hopefully that will change in the future with the community center or ice rink or even a restaurant that has a kids play area. Resort has games, but they are usually too busy to hang out long. We love Cooper Landing Brewery and their sandbox, but too far for us to drive there that often. We as newcomers don't know the history of what has been available in the past, and we have never seen the Abtech gym open." So with that, I want to mention that there is a kid-friendly activity coming to town in April that most people I don't end up seeing much kids there historically, and that is the health fair. So be on the lookout for that. And then I wanted to speak in favor of not tearing down the park too. My grandkids play there, and my kids played there. And that doorway is all hill and dangerous, I see in the winter. And along with the 55 homes, there's several low-income housing units there, as in big apartments, and a lot of people there, the husband works and the wife stays home with the kids and they only have one vehicle or something. So I would just like to see a new playground, totally open, kid-friendly, before anything like that happens. And I do have some names that added on 15 if it's necessary to stop the destruction of the playground. And another thing that might help people know what's available in the area is a business listing for business licenses in the Seward area that is public. It is for the state of Alaska and for the Kenai Peninsula Borough, though I had to have the nice lady there walk me through how to get to it. But Seward does not have that, and it might be nice because you're like, where can I get my kid's haircut, or where can I get my haircut, and you can look that up. And it also, Seward's been accused of selective enforcement, or it's just selective on, and that would change that because you could see everything in black and white on who has a business license and who doesn't. So I'm also with Carol Griswold on tackle the issues that she mentioned. And the change.org sign-in thing that was going around, don't give them money. That doesn't go towards the cause. And they asked for money, and I see people were donating, and that doesn't help the playground not get there. Or David Paperman had something going once, and he didn't know they asked for money either.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Check in. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Rosie Szymanski. I'm an in-town, in fact I live on Dora Way. And I probably moved in right besides Bonnie. Been there almost 35 years. My children have played that little playground. My grandson, who's 25 now, and I have 2 new babies that hopefully will be able to play there also. I too would like you to reconsider. Sorry, I don't have it, but I got it from COVID, so my voice is gone. I would like you to reconsider to leave it there until the other one has been built. It really, I've seen birthday parties, listened to the children playing for years. Please reconsider selling it before the new playground is put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Just one more chance, making sure I'm not missing anyone. Great, thank you for everyone being here this evening. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
Second?
Thank you. And I'll just jump out in front with some changes and we can see how it goes. I was hoping to add resolution 2022-019, and that's repealing resolution 2022-004 and authorizing the city manager to purchase the super crew cab police responder trucks from Alaska Safety and appropriating those funds. Any objections to having that on the consent? Okay. The next consent item I was going to try for is resolution 2022-022 is authorizing the city manager to purchase the used steamer truck. Any objections?
I have an objection to that, yeah.
So we'll leave that off the consent then. And then I did want to pull two things. I'd like to pull resolution 2022-014 off the consent agenda and also approval of the January 24th regular meeting minutes. So thanks for letting me jump out there in front. Are there any other changes or amendments to the, thank you?
I would like to pull resolution 2022-017
From the consent.
from the consent, please.
Okay, thank you. Any other changes? That's it. Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended, DeMoss,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved on tonight's consent agenda. The introduction of ordinance 2022-004, amending Seward City Code 5.22, Developer Incentive Reimbursement Program to further clarify and define program processes, amending section 14.10.030 water main extensions to exclude the language in chapter 5.22 and enacting section 14.15.505, scope of article to exclude the language in chapter 5.22. This ordinance will come for public hearing and enactment on February 28th. You have approved resolution 2022-015 authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Resurrection Recycling to provide recycling services for city facilities in the amount of $125 plus tax per location per month. Resolution 2022-016 authorizing the city manager to execute R&M task order number 2734.20, completing required geotechnical investigation of the potential site for a new public works facility in an amount not to exceed $71,591 and appropriating funds. Resolution 2022-018, urging the
No,
Alaska...
019. I don't think 18 was on the consent agenda.
Oh, you're right, thank you, appreciate that. Resolution 2022-019, repealing resolution 2022-004, and authorizing the city manager to purchase two 2023 Ford F-150 Super Crew Cab police responder trucks from Kendall Ford of Anchorage under the State of Alaska Fleet Vehicle Contract with associated upfitting and fire-specific equipment from Alaska Safety and Procom Alaska in the amount not to exceed $138,981.92 and appropriating funds. And you have appointed Fred Wolkers to the Port and Commerce Advisory Board with a term to expire July 2024. You have no objection to the renewal of the liquor license for Thorns Showcase Lounge, number 1130 Beverage Dispensary. You have no objection to the liquor license renewal for Firebrand Barbecue, license number 5872, Restaurant Eating Place Public Convenience, seasonal. You have no objection to the liquor license renewal for Gateway Liquor and Food Mart, license number 2683, Package Store. You have no objection to the transfer of controlling interest and the approval, and you are approving the restaurant designation permit for Ray's Waterfront Bar and Grill, number 2790, Beverage Dispensary, seasonal. You have no objection to the liquor license renewal for Zudi's Cafe, license number 5356, Restaurant Eating Place Public Convenience.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. The first one is recognizing Cindy Eklund for her service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I'm gonna throw out a couple numbers for you. So Cindy was on, you have to come up here, I'll stay 6 feet away from you. Cindy was on, and I'll read this in a minute, but on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 13 years. And she was on the Borough Planning Commission for 12 years. And now she is our borough representative. So when you think about a consummate citizen who serves her fellow man, this is what you need to think of. So I want to be invited over to your house and see this hanging on the wall. Okay. So this says, presented to Cindy Eklund for excellent leadership and service to the people of Seward on the Planning and Zoning Commission, October 2008 and October 2021. So tell me, how many years were you the chair of the commission? 10 years. So let's thank Cindy one more time.
I'll be talking later.
Okay. So next on the agenda, which I know that's hard to follow for the rest of the meeting, but city manager's report, and council will find that starting on page 6 of their packet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only other item I have to add, which I do realize I didn't write a whole lot this time, but you see the other departments, is that the city was notified that we did receive $1.8 million in lost revenue from ARPA funding. There's parameters on how it can be spent, and a resolution will come before you at a later date to appropriate the funds to the proper line items. So we're pretty excited about that.
Great, thank you. So look, there's a very thorough written report in the packet, but I know council usually has questions or follow-ups. Is there anyone that would like to start us off? Councilmember DeMoss?
Sure, yeah, I just have one question, I think, so far. I had a couple folks reach out to me about this really cool project that some high school kids did for a science fair back in 2019 for the Lowell Creek Hydro Project, which I'm not super familiar with, but looked at some of the material that you gave me on it. And folks were asking where we were with that, and we had the feasibility study done, and then I guess we have to do the water flow test for 3 years, and I found out today that we are in the middle of that flow test, and it'll be complete 2023, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I just wanted the public to understand that, and just to kind of put that out there that we are doing that. We'll get that after the 3 years of testing, and then see where we want to go with that. I think that's all I had for, I actually do have one more thing. I'm a little bit concerned about our seasonal positions being filled, because I know we had issues last year just with labor shortages. I anticipate to have those same issues this year, and potentially even more severe with lack of housing. And so I don't know if you have a plan for that yet, but I know there's some positions that I personally am worried about, like the gardener position. And it looks like we haven't even filled our winter seasonal positions with Parks and Rec. So I don't necessarily expect a plan today, but I'm hoping that people are talking about what the plan is if and when we run into those issues.
Did you understand?
I did, thank you for that question. I did speak with Director Flores today from Parks and Rec, and we did talk about, I think you're correct, it's pretty highly unlikely that we can fill the gardener position. That is a very difficult position for us to fill. And we discussed maybe an RFP for gardening services, so that way the work can be completed but not by a seasonal employee. We began advertising the beginning of March, and we talked about perhaps we need to review these, the pay for these positions. Where at one time, I feel like the pay kept pace, but as we know, a lot of things have changed, and especially for part-time seasonal work, the pay has actually increased a lot, not just in our area, but throughout the state. and even the rest of the United States. But, so we are looking at that, and we'll come back before you with
Great, thank you.
So I have a follow-up question for that. So we've just completed the wage study and implemented some of that, but that didn't address all the seasonal positions. That was just to clarify, that was just the full-time.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for administration? This isn't the clerk report, but I might just say the clerk and I discussed about moving to the front of the web page just a link to get to packets and agendas more quickly than, with the web page trying to navigate that. And I know that that will kind of be a joint partnership with MIS under the city manager and the clerk working on that. So hopefully something like that can, and we'll talk about that maybe at the next meeting. Any other questions? It's nice having maybe once we have that going, folks can access the city manager's reports a little bit easier, but those are always hard copy in the city hall, they're at the library, and they are on the website, and you can always call the clerk if you need assistance. Next on the agenda is the city attorney's report, and that starts on page 32, and we have our city attorney here.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sam Severin. I think you're used to seeing Brooks down here, and I'm glad to be here in his stead, enjoying the weather. And I really wish I had the time to be the temporary gardener. That's what I'd really like to be doing, but I'm not available for that. Anyway, it's a long agenda tonight, and it's Valentine's Day, so I'll keep it kind of short. A lot of our stuff in the report is kind of the behind the scenes, not particularly interesting to, I find it interesting, but the one that is one of the things that I've been working on, which I do think is kind of interesting, is working on the pay parking lots and making those more enforceable by either citation or just both looking at the legal side of how to implement that and clean up the code, but also just the practical side of who can write citations. Is that the way to do it? Just how to go about that, which is something I've been working on, and we're moving forward on exploring different ways. So I think that's of interest, and otherwise I'm glad to be here and look forward to helping as issues come up tonight.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any questions for the city attorney? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Borough Assembly report, and you can find that report on page 34, and we have our Borough Assembly representative in the house.
Thank you, Cindy Eklund, Borough Assembly. The report on page 34 is just a bulleted list, and I'll go into a little more detail for you tonight. The Borough has presented a capital priorities list that's $50,173,355 that has 11 projects on the list. I'll be going to Juneau for AML with 3 other assembly members to work on getting funding for these projects. 2 are of real interest to the Seward community, and if listed in by priority, number 4 is the Japanese Creek drainage improvements with a funding request of $1,680,000. There's a local match already in place of $450,000 for this project, so I think that's a really good message to Juneau to say, we're serious about this, and that is the road out to the landfill and citizens in that area. So, important project. Number 6 on the list is the Quejack Creek Flood Mitigation Project for $1,800,000, and that's out to Cuesta Woods, the Bruno Road, the Bruno Bridge. A while ago, I was asked by the former Port and Commerce Chair, Bruce Jaffa, to get a map of Kenai Peninsula Borough-owned property that might be suitable for residential use around Seward. And there is a 900-acre parcel that's mostly high ground between Cuesta Woods and Nash Woods or Woodland Hills. And if that was opened up for residential, that road through across Bruno Bridge and the road would be one access point, and then the other one would be possibly down into Woodland Hills or Nash Woods. So I think that drainage, Quejack Creek flood mitigation, is another important project for us to be happy to get funding for. Then there is also a Kenai Peninsula Borough infrastructure project list, and there are 4 projects on this list that I'm pretty excited about taking to Juneau. because I think all 4 of them will benefit the Seward area. $9,750,000 is being asked to facilitate the replacement of up to 12 service area bridges, and 7 of them are in the Seward area. Bruno Road, Browse Creek, Lost Creek, Forest Drive out in Old Mill, Spruce Creek, Nautical Road, and Old Exit Glacier Road number 2. So there were, I think, 12 on there, and we got 7. So pretty good. Hopefully we get some funding there. Number 2 on that bullet list is $10,200,000 to rehabilitate Tier 1, 2, and 3 paved roads in the road service area. So any of the paved borough roads in our area would be on those lists. Number 3 is $8 million to supplement and advance capital improvement project initiatives for road service areas. And way back, I used to be on the East Kenai Peninsula Road Service area, and we have quite a few roads in our area that would fall into that. The last one is really exciting, $12,500,000 for a communication study to facilitate construction of communications infrastructure at up to 20 locations throughout the borough. And so that's to help with the broadband expansion that we know is so important in this day and age. So on to some other topics that came up over the last couple of meetings at the Assembly are the utility and road special assessment districts. So if we are looking for residential property outside the city to help with our crunch here, there was these special assessment districts where they asked the borough for funding to help put in utilities to a new property or improve the road service to a new property. So I think those are important things to keep in mind if we expand outside. And then the big thing, and I'm sure Councilmember McClure can remember this when she was on the commission in the Assembly, as the material site conditional land use permit. And of interest to maybe Mr. Trugas, there is a material site ordinance, Title 29, that whenever a gravel pit is what they are, comes before the Assembly or before the Planning Commission, we have the most public comment at those meetings. And I've always tried to find a balance between the concerns of the residents of the area and the contractors and the public's need for gravel. So it's been going on, the current adopted ordinance was from 2016. We forwarded code changes to the Assembly in 2018. They didn't pass it in 2019, and it's back on our plate now to try to come up with a final one that is going to meet everybody's needs. So the next work session on that is April 5th. But the contractors group, and I believe the Metco Association signed the draft ordinance that they presented, so we'll be looking at that as well. We know that any expansion is going to need gravel for the roads, and we have it here. They don't have it much over on the other side. You may remember the Resilience and Security Advisory Commission that was put into place at the borough level a couple years ago. I think Sustainable Seward had a large part of getting that in place. They have given 2 resolutions to the Assembly requesting action, and the first one is to change the Kenai Peninsula Borough Tax Code regarding independent power producers. There's a solar farm trying to be built on 100 acres of native land somewhere south of Soldotna. They currently have solar farms in Willow and Wasilla that are doing well. The second one is to add a position to the Solid Waste Department. I was Sustainability and Public Outreach Coordinator. If you've looked at the borough budget, one of the largest line items in that budget is solid waste. In last fall, $6 million went towards a solid waste leachate problem, and so I really think it's important that we focus on ways that we can lengthen the life of our landfills and recycle the recyclables that are constantly, aluminum you can recycle and recycle and recycle. A few years ago, Sustainable Seward really did a good job of recycling in the schools. We had recycling bins in the high school and the middle school, and they're gone now. So we really need to re-educate again. I know 20 years ago they had classes in the elementary school. So Resurrection Recycling is helping lower that cost, and a new entrepreneur, I don't know if he's presented here, Pat Simpson, he presented at the RSAC meeting. RSAC is what Resilience and Security Advisory Commission acronym is. And then he presented it also to the Assembly, and his goal is to set up equipment here in the Seward area soon. I think he's looking at leasing some SMIC property, and he's going to, he's developed a process to turn plastics, item 4 and 5, into building material. And I did speak to the RSAC president today, and he spoke with Lee Fry, the new director of the Borough landfill, and they might even be able to mix 1 and 2s in with that. So hopefully that will come online fairly soon. One other item at our last RSAC meeting that was new to me was a thing called an in-pipe hydro turbine. I don't know, we lost our public facilities guy. In-pipe hydro turbine, and it's a system that works by taking advantage of gravity-driven water flow. And it seemed like something that the Seward community could look into, whether you live out of town or the water coming down off of the lake or the pond up on Mount Marathon, you know. Let's put some turbines inside and get some added renewable renewable energy. Thanks, Cheryl. Anyway, last item. The Seward citizen representation on the Seward Planning and Zoning Commission and the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission. As you heard earlier, I served many years on those, and it was a really worthwhile service. It you know what's happening in town, and you can help make decisions for the betterment of the community. It doesn't require an exorbitant amount of time, and you're serving your friends and neighbors. You're not, you know. And I think the city recently passed that you're going to get paid some for being on the Seward Planning Commission, I think starting the second quarter of this year. Also, we really need a citizen to be on the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission. We have someone from the east side of the peninsula, but we need someone from the city of Seward, and I don't think anyone's applied yet to that. And they make decisions that, you know, are important to Seward, that can affect Seward. And you can zoom into the borough meetings. You wouldn't have had to drive through the snow to get to the meeting tonight. And they pay you a stipend, and they also reimburse you if you drive over there. They pay for your hotel room. So I really would hope that someone would consider applying for that. Thank you. Any questions?
I will see you in June this week, so thank you, Cindy. Next on the agenda is other reports and announcements. Speaking of volunteers, we have our Historic Preservation Commission year-end 2021 report by Chair Cheryl Cease. And we have a rundown. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. Before I begin, as far as our 2021 annual review, I'd like to point out that we spent the majority of our year on our very successful CLG project for our historic Seward historic signs all around town, and huge, huge success. Okay, don't forget about this, huh? So, beginning in January, CLG historic narrative signs. Discuss, approve ranking criteria for properties to receive a CLG grant 20005 sign. Discuss, approve revised CLG grant 2005 list of original 25 properties. Discuss and revise annual priority list for approval in 2021 and review, discuss, approve, and plan 2020 annual report to council. In February, extend public notice of historic award nominations to April. I encourage everyone, whomever is watching, please think of those that you can nominate for this year's Historic Preservation Award. There'll be nominations are due in April, and they'll be awarded in May. Mark. Okay, wait, sorry. Okay, CLG historic narrative signs. Begin work on writing the narratives for each respective CLG historic sign. I'd like to point out that our commission in volunteer hours was over 3,000 hours of work on those signs and project. And then give an annual report in 2021 priorities report to council. That happened in February of 2021. March, continue writing narratives for CLG signs. Begin edits of narratives. Direct staff to post Seward's Day proclamation. Discuss CLG celebration. Submit 2020 CLG annual report to Alaska Historical Commission. In April, choose historic award nominations. Discuss events for National Historic Preservation Month, which is May. Submit signs, sign narratives to the sign company producing the signs. In May, award local historic awards. Council actually awards them. Attend award ceremony. Approve final sign narratives, order signs and posts, plant flowers in Hoban Park, flower maintenance and hand watering at Hoban Park, cut lilac shoots from historic plants and root them and prepare them to plant at Hoban Park. In June, begin receiving CLG signs, posts delayed. Create historic walking tour website. CLG celebration, presentation, cake and showing of historic signs, video with council and public. That was a wonderful success. Flower maintenance and hand watering at Hoban Park. And when we say hand watering at Hoban Park, it's not once a month. It depends on the weather and the wind. Sometimes I'm there 5-6 days. And I have to hand carry my gallons of water to water those ferns. Okay. Plant historic lilac shoots at Hoban Park. Transplants died. Plan to plant more in 2022. We seem to have a problem no matter what we do with the public and dogs running over our little struts. In July, we had no meeting. It was a hiatus. August, Founder's Day proclamation. Continue to work on CLG signs. Now that was in the getting them in the ground. Submit historic inventory list to the offices of History and Archaeology, flower maintenance and hand watering at Hoban Park. September, new member Donna Walker joined the HP Commission. Begin to add information gained during sign narrative process to historic inventory list. CLG signs and posts completed. Began work on standards and guidelines addendum to Chapter 8 of the Seward 2017 Historic Preservation Plan. Historic walking tour map completed, added to website, printed and distributed to local businesses and organizations. Presentation to Seward Rotary on the historic walking tour, summary and partnership opportunities. October, continue work on standards and guidelines. Schedule work session for final edit work on January 2022. CLG signs mounted on commercial buildings with the exception of 3 that needed to be trimmed to fit frames. Now we have those that are all ready to be mounted. They're all paid for. We're just waiting for our carpenter to get them installed. Okay, Historic Preservation Commission did public presentations and led 2 days of historic walking tours for the Seward Wellness Week at the invitation of the Seward Prevention Coalition. In November, new member Art Lemaster joined the HP Commission. Began working on the historic district boundary or overlay. Request staff to provide printed copy of 217 Seward Historic Preservation Plan to each commissioner, hard copy so we can write on them and use them with our standards and guidelines for historic preservation. Presentation to Seward Rotary Club on Seward's history based on the historic walking tour. December, I have something highlighted. I don't know if yours is highlighted. We're to give 4 reports annually now to council. And I would prefer if I may only have to give 1 oral. As you know, I'm very nervous public speaking, and then the other 3 written. If by your grace you would allow me to do that. Review 2020 annual review and 2022 priorities list. Continue work on historic district boundary, focusing on the historic business district. Began to define land use in the historic business district. We're working on land use, commercial business district to be added to the land use table, which still has to be finished and then presented to planning and zoning. Staff was directed to put forth public notice to solicit historic award nominations in January 2022. Decision made on the historic commercial business district boundary. No changes to existing boundary, historic overlay boundary. Okay. Moving on to 2022 Preservation Commission priorities and schedules. January 13. And as you know, none of these are like, necessarily as in, it's written in that month. I mean, everything's a working flow. Brainstorm certified local government grant ideas. This is going to be ongoing in here and there. As soon as we completed our historic CLG grant last year, the State of Alaska Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, requested that we apply for another grant because they were so impressed with our job. It was done on time and under budget. Okay, January 20th, work session, edit historic preservation standards and guidelines. And in January, I'd hoped to do this presentation, but here we are in February. February 10th, direct staff to produce Seward's Day proclamation last Monday in March. And over to the right of that is submit annual CLG report, which is something I do, and that goes to SHPO. March 10th, post Seward's Day proclamation last Monday in March. Review, revise, and update online Seward Historic Preservation Inventory List. Submit to Offices of History and Archaeology. That too is a working, flowing post. We need to keep up on the first 50 years, which go through 41, but we now have 50 years that we need to begin that follow that.
So I guess if you're gonna go through your 2022 list, we're actually later in this meeting gonna set some time where we do a work session with HP.
Okay.
So it might make more sense for us to sit down around a table and talk about that, and that's also why I pulled your priorities off the consent agenda, so we can keep that for
a joint work session. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So this was such a good overview of what happened last year.
Okay, well, thank you
So
for
that's
that.
perfect.
Okay, and thank you for making this shorter for me.
Yeah. No, we love it. It's really good information for the public to know what you're doing, and then at that work session, we'll have a chance to have more of a dialogue, so that'll be
Okay.
perfect.
Great.
Well,
Thank you, Council.
Are there any questions for the
Oh,
chair?
sorry, yes.
No, it was so comprehensive. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
thank
much.
you, Cheryl. Next on the agenda, there are no other presentations. We're down to public hearings, ordinances for public hearing and enactment. So I am looking for a motion and a second. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Ordinance 2022-004 is amending Seward City Code, Chapter 2.30, Boards and Commissions, Article 2, Seward Planning and Zoning Commission, by enacting Section 2.30.217, Staff Assistance to Commission, and providing for housekeeping amendments. This ordinance was introduced on January 24th, 2022, and is coming tonight for public hearing and enactment.
I move for the enactment of ordinance 2022-004.
I'll second.
And I'll turn over to administration. Could you outline the council, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really, the impetus of this ordinance is actually in the section 2.30217, page 39 of your packet. And just really outlining the staff to the commission that it be staffed by city manager designee, and honestly, the designee is community development, and that it will be staffed by them. And then while I was in the chapter, there are some housekeeping amendments as well, but that's pretty much the summary. Oh, and one item that I did want to touch on is page 41 of your packet. It is 230225 D, it's up at the top of page 41. The commission shall have no authority to solicit or commit city funds without first obtaining approval of the city council, just to outline the flow of funds. But those are two really of the substantive changes. The rest are housekeeping. And you see that I further bulleted the language. It makes it easier when quoting code, writing it out and quoting it, just to be able to reference the numbering system a little bit easier.
Great, thank you. So right now, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
We don't have anyone signed in.
Is there anyone wishing to speak? You have 5 minutes.
City Eckman, inside city limits. I just wanted to say that I reviewed this earlier today, over the weekend actually, and I appreciated the changes that were being made. I think it has more structure for the help that the staff would be giving the commission. It outlines it very clearly, and the housekeeping changes are just needed to be done every once in a while, the old code, so good luck.
Excellent, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. It is back at the dais. Is there any questions for administration? Any comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2022-004. McClure?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That ordinance is enacted.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is unfinished business. We have one item under unfinished business, and it's an item for reconsideration, Resolution 2022-008. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-008 is authorizing the sale of real property located at 1911 Doorway, also known as the Doorway Playground, by a sealed bid as provided by Seward City Code. This resolution was approved on January 24, 2022, and a motion or request for reconsideration was filed January 25th, and so it's coming before you.
Thank you. And I'll need a vote for reconsideration in a second.
I make a motion that we reconsider Resolution 2022-008.
I'll second it. Lots of this seconded.
So right now, what we have under discussion is just the motion to reconsider. The vote must pass by 2/3, so we'll need 4 votes to reconsider. Then the resolution will be back on the table and we can discuss the resolution. So, maker of the motion, did you want to make any comments on the reconsideration?
I just brought this back for reconsideration because I felt we needed to stick with the original plan to keep the playground intact until a new playground was available. And also, all of the comments that I received from people in the community were asking not to sell it, and I didn't feel that one property was going to solve any housing shortage that we had. That's why I brought it back for reconsideration.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, can we call for a vote, please? And this is, yeah, sorry.
Voting on the motion to reconsider Resolution 2022-008. McClure?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That motion has been approved, and Resolution 2022-008 is back on the floor in its last form, which is in your packet.
So on page 45 includes one of the amendments that was made that night. I want to make another amendment, and if I can get a second, I'll speak to it. I'd like to add a section 3 to read, sealed bid auction will be held once an alternative playground is developed in the neighborhood. And section 3 will become a new section 4.
I'll second.
I made this motion at the last meeting, and I think what this does is we will not, this playground will stay in place. We won't do a sealed bid auction until another playground in the neighborhood is developed, whether it be the Jesse Lee property or, something in that same area. It would come to council prior to, having this piece sold, just knowing that would be developed, or at least that property would be developed before it went out for sealed auction. So that would be my amendment.
Could you just repeat that, please?
Yeah, so it reads,
I know.
I got lost, sorry.
so it reads, sealed bid auction will be held once an alternative playground is developed in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So I was using the language, and I didn't go back and listen, but that was the motion in the minutes, which I think covers the idea that we wouldn't go out for sealed bid of this property until the alternative piece of property playground is developed. And the reason why I'm leaving section 4 in is because even when all that's happening, we still don't want, like say the sealed bid auction happens, we still don't want, we don't want any playground material to be taken away until we know that that playground is totally in place. So I just felt like it wouldn't hurt to leave that section 4 in place. So, I don't know, I think it accomplishes what we want, but also moves this item forward. Is there any further discussion?
I think that's what everybody was thinking.
So, vote on the motion?
Voting on the motion to amend to add a new section 3, Wells,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
So prior to voting on this main resolution, I just want to check into administration and just verify that you feel like this gives administration enough direction and enough of a roadmap moving forward for the development of the playground, the new playground, and then, future potential sale of the doorway playground.
I believe it does, Madam Mayor. We will be holding off until doing anything with the doorway playground until the new playground is developed. And of course, we will bring information forward when we have information about the new playground.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on the resolution as amended.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2022-008 as amended. Osenga,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda, we are down to resolutions under new business. Resolution 2022-014, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-014 is approving the Historic Preservation Commission priorities from February 2022 to February 2023.
I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-014.
I'll second.
I don't know if administration can necessarily speak to this, so I'll just go ahead and speak to why I pulled it off the consent agenda. As you can hear, the Historic Preservation is doing a lot of good work for our community. I just had some questions about their wording with their, what they say are their list of priorities and goals for 2022. So I just wanted to pull this off the consent, and then I'm going to make a subsequent motion to postpone, because I'd like to meet with them first, get some clarification, and just talk to them about what they've done and what their plans are, and then this should come back to us. So I did want to ask the clerk before I made that motion. I know that we're scheduling a joint work session, and I just wasn't sure if I can postpone this to the first meeting in April. I know we're looking at March 14th or 28th for the joint work session. Can I say like the meeting following the joint work session? Is it okay if my motion?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to postpone resolution 2022-014 to the first regular meeting following our joint work session with the commission.
I'll second that.
So we can have some further discussion if we need to. And in between now and then, I can also talk to members on the commission, but I think those joint work sessions are just so helpful to sit at a table and have some dialogue. Is there any other questions? Madam Clerk, can you call for a vote on the postponement?
Voting on the motion to postpone Resolution 2022-014. Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
The postponement is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-017. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-017 is supporting Chugach Regional Resources Commission's application to the Economic Development Administration American Rescue Plan Indigenous Communities Funding Opportunity for expansion of the hatchery facilities at Alutiiq Pride Marine Institute.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-017.
I'll second.
So I'll turn it over to administration.
Madam Mayor, we really don't have anything to add other than what's in the packet. I apologize, what's in the packet and what has been explained by those speaking to it.
So maybe I'll ask the council member who pulled it off the consent agenda.
Thank you. Yes. First, I want to say I absolutely support this organization 100,000,000%. I had the opportunity to listen to Willow Hedrick at the CAPED conference, and what they're doing is amazing. What they plan to do is really exciting. I'm excited about their expansion, but there have been a couple questions about the leased land and where that puts the city as far as liability, as far as a lien holder, if the federal government is going to be number one as a lien holder, and why we aren't just selling them the land or making that happen if they're going to be a long-term, you know. And if there's been any discussion on that, I guess I just kind of wanted to open up that a little bit.
I know that we are, and I'm going to end up turning to the attorney, but I know that we are working with the attorney and on basically cleaning up the lease situation, because we have, you speak to, because I was not here during all this part of it, so go ahead.
So the Harbor Master, Norm Regis, has been working with Brooks on doing just that, because the current situation is that the city of Seward leases to UAF, and then UAF has a long-term lease, and they sublease the portion that CRRC leases. We're currently in the process of, it's more complicated than you would think to pry apart the lease-sublease situation, and Sam can probably speak to that. With regards to CRRC actually obtaining the building and the land, that's something that Jeff Hetrick and Willow have spoken with Norm and myself and Brooks about. The concern there is we didn't want to put their ability to obtain these grant funds at risk, and timeline-wise, that would be a pretty extensive effort to go through the sale or disposal of the property. We've definitely talked about the pros and cons associated with that, and this is a great example of a situation where it actually makes it more difficult for an entity to go about obtaining grant funds because the property and the building are owned by the city.
Right.
So that's a great point. Sam, do you want to add anything to that?
No, not really. I'm familiar with it. I know Brooks is still working on it. And my understanding is, it has been the attorney who's primarily dealing with it, but my understanding is the action tonight is just limited to expressing, city's support, as opposed to anything dealing with the lease situation. So.
And that lease will be coming before you guys as soon as we're able to do so.
Okay. I think that answers my questions. Thank you.
And so I have some questions about this as well. So it says, 1, 2, 3, in the fourth paragraph, a lien against the portion of the property that is improved with federal funds that is provided through this project. So I support Liz's, how she brings up, if we have a lien against the property, is the Fed going to be in first position on the property, or will the city be in first position on the property? If we allow a lien, should we only, they're saying they're only going to put a lien on a portion of the property that is expanded. Well, how is that possible? I don't understand how you can only put a lien without subdividing the property or doing a property boundary change. How it is that you can just do a small 25% of a lien on for example, an acre of property. I don't understand that at all. And
So wait on that question. There's a couple options here. I don't know if you just want to make sure those questions are out there before the lease comes back to us, or if you'd like the attorney to speak to them.
I can wait for the lease, that's fine. I can,
Or we could just make sure, if you have questions you want to get on the record so that we can make sure, or I don't know if the city attorney wants to answer those.
What are you reading from?
So- yeah, so here is the resolution, right? And then it says, in order to receive the grant the funds to construct the expansion, and this was my concern because I understand that the grant funds expire March 25th, right? If we don't approve this lease, they expire March 25th.
Deadline.
So,
Am I wrong about that?
so let's hold on a second. Do you have an answer to that? Did you-
No, I didn't think the lease was even up for,
Yeah.
till, when is the lease coming up for discussion?
The lease will be coming up at a future date. The current lease, I'm gonna say 2026, but I'll have to
Okay,
get
so-
back to you on that.
So the lease is
Current.
current?
Correct.
So the lease isn't even the question is, either we support this
Lien.
with this wording in it, or we don't, I
So-
guess.
2026.
One of the conversations that we are having is, can it be a lien against the lease versus the property? And then that is something that we're working through with Brooks as well. So that way it won't be against the property, but against the lease. And we don't have a full answer to that one yet, but that is something that we're trying to work out.
Councilmember Osenga?
So just a question, quick question, the property, and are the buildings separate from the property? I mean, do they own the buildings? Do we own the buildings? What do we have? What do they have?
We own the buildings.
We own everything there, the land and the buildings and everything? Okay, that's just...
Okay, so it sounds like we have some questions on the table prior to that lease coming before us. And then for tonight, the resolution, if there's any further discussion on tonight's resolution or questions.
Okay, so I just want
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so I just wanted to make sure that we are not agreeing to putting a lien on the property in order, or on the lease in order for them to receive this money by March 25th, which is right around the corner. I guess that's my question.
So does this resolution, you're trying to clarify if this resolution pre-obligates us to a lien on the property?
Exactly.
I don't see it that way. I mean, because the that's background to something that has to happen eventually, but the resolution right now is to express council support for the intent of the project.
Yeah. So, but it says, in order to receive grant funds to construct the expansion, there has to be a lien against a portion of the property that is improved with federal funds as provided through this project. And so that decision has to be made by March 25th, or am I just not understanding this at all?
So right now, what we're adopting is Resolution 2022-017. The only official would be the resolution language itself. So you're looking at, do you know what document you're looking at?
Page 141.
So the
1, 2,
agenda
3,
statement.
fourth paragraph down, first full sentence.
So, Madam Mayor, honestly, we don't have an answer to that one, to that question. We will have to confer with the city attorney and also with Director Regis, who has the answers to these questions.
Well, in the following of that paragraph, there's 3 options on how to accomplish that.
I did see that, yep.
Yeah. But right now, again, to the city attorney, we aren't obligating or promising any of this right now with the current resolution.
No, it's not my understanding, and I think we're making a clear record that the city has questions about that and is only trying to approve the part of it that supports going forward, trying to get the grant. And isn't, that we have questions about the lien language. I frankly just I can't tell enough about it, don't know enough about it to jump in and say anything about the lien issue. So I think it's pretty clear on the record that the vote is for sections 1 and 2 that are on page 145. City council supports the effort to go after the grant. I think that's, yeah.
Councilmember Demas?
Okay, so with the attorney's review on that, and I don't see any of the language regarding the lien in the actual resolution, I feel comfortable supporting this resolution.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion, Councilmember Demas?
I would motion to.
Well, I'll just check and see.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion, any further questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
I would like to pause for a moment and talk to the attorney.
Yep.
Before there's any action taken.
Okay, so 3-minute break?
Perfect.
Okay, 3-minute break. Okay, we're back on record. Back on the record, and I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for allowing us to take that brief break just to make sure. And as Sam stated, the language is really expressed in section 1, and it does not obligate us through the other language. And we did confirm that Brooks is working on the lien on the lease versus the property. We're still in that process, but that is that. The resolution is in support of them pursuing the grant funding. And any other part will have to come back to the council as well, including the lease part that we're working on,
Okay.
and all of that will have to come back to the council.
Thank you.
Well, I'll speak in support of this resolution, just because we'll cross that bridge when we know that they have this grant. And I think it's just been a great anchor tenant down there doing wonderful things, so I'd like to see that expanded if we're able to. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-017. Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Dumas?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next is Resolution 2022-018. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-018 is urging the Alaska Department of Labor Commissioner to ensure the Seward Tech Student Services Center is reopened to public access.
Looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-018.
I'll second.
And I think administration did a great job of including a really comprehensive agenda statement and resolution, and I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Other than, we have been in contact, and Director Flores has been in contact with them, and recently we received back a proposed amendment to our agreement, and that is actually with the attorney to go through to make sure that we agree with that. Now, there was a comment made about that even if AvTech could open tomorrow, that the city couldn't staff it. There is some truth to that. I do want to say that. There is some truth. We've taken out all of the computer equipment. The 2 employees that were there have been relocated, and we've moved them. We would need to be able to put them back and put back our equipment, so that would take some time. And then we would need to, make sure that we have the staffing in place. So we'd be able to open immediately, just not the full hours immediately. But we have not been given a date for reopening.
So just to clarify, you're saying we do have a current contract in place?
But they have proposed some amendments, and we want to run it through legal first, and then it will come back to you. So we're working through that process at this time.
And again, if you were given a date, we clearly understand it's not a city facility.
Right.
They're protecting their staff and their students, but if you were given a date, then you could work towards staffing.
Exactly.
Initially some hours, and then expanding to the normal activities. I do want to just put on the record, AvTech is a great partner in this community. And again, we know that they had to do what they felt best to protect their students and their staff, but it's just, I know our public's having a hard time seeing all those great facilities sit there not being used. And I will say, Public Works has done a great job finding other facilities. I know they're doing archery at the cruise ship terminal, and they've been utilizing the library and a lot of outside activities, but my kids have grown up with that space at AvTech. Go ahead.
It's Parks and Rec should, instead of Public Works.
Oh, Public Works, oh my goodness. Yeah, they just have those kids running those. Still at Department of Labor. Excuse me. Parks and Recreation, credit where credit is due. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
And also, as you stated, Parks and Rec has found other venues for the activities, and even, again, if, we were given the date, those venues, those activities would stay at those venues until we could, move them over, but just another,
I really do think I hit on something here with the snow. We could just get those new drivers in there, but, is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, can we call for a vote, please?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-018. Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Dumas?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-020. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-020 is authorizing the city manager to execute task order number 2734.182 with R&M Engineering for the development of a plan to expand city water and sewer infrastructure for the purpose of developing the Hemlock subdivision in the amount not to exceed $9,553 and appropriating funds.
Thank you, and I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-020.
I'll second.
Thank you, I'll turn it over to administration, and that starts on page 197.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to turn it over to the Assistant City Manager.
So real quick to kick it off, I'm going to go a little bit longer just to talk about housing because it is such a hot button in our community. And I want to read a quote from a study that the city paid for. It states, several major employers in Seward were asked what major problems they anticipated in the next few years. Invariably, housing for employees was high on their lists. Many industries in Seward today cannot find proper housing for their new employees. And as Seward heads towards rapid growth, this situation will continue to worsen. That was written in 1974 in a study that the city paid for. 48 years later, we stand in an even worse situation. The Hemlock subdivision is a step in the right direction towards fixing the housing problem. I recently heard a presentation that a local realtor gave to Rotary, and the assertion was that the city is approximately 175 homes short of market equilibrium. So if we had 175 homes hit the market today, supply would equal demand. So 40 is obviously a positive step in that direction. I do want to highlight though that it's not a one size fits all, this is going to fix our housing problem. This is just one piece of the puzzle. So the city is working on other projects to first and foremost infill currently vacant lots. So the community development director has been working on a project that we'll be presenting more information on in the future to show the number of lots inside city limits that currently have access to utilities and are viable options for residential development. So that's one project. The second is looking at an expansive master plan for water, sewer, and electric and roads to be expanded to privately held parcels where property owners wish to build a home. So that's a second piece. Thirdly would be to effectively utilize the developer reimbursement program. That phase 2 of another subdivision is going to be coming forward to you guys shortly. Fourthly would be to examine where the city can sell property to allow development in a reasonable and timely manner. For the Hemlock subdivision, and we'll talk about it in a subsequent resolution when it comes to the rezone and replat, our intention is to zone these R1 so that there could be, they would be single-family homes. And I know the topic of nightly lodging has come up, but the intention is for these to be 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet on a 6,000 square foot lot in general. Those would all have to be owner occupied. So that really goes to the heart of what we're trying to solve here. And then the word affordable gets thrown around a lot. I know there's a lot of comments about affordability of homes. And the reality is, first and foremost, the word affordable means vastly different things to vastly different people. When I was starting out, in college, saving up for my first down payment, an affordable home back then was very, very much different than it is right now. So we need to be careful when we talk about affordable homes. And the other thing is, to some degree, Seward is not in a vastly different situation than the rest of the country. So I bought my first home in 2005, right after I got out of college, for $204,000. That same home is worth over $400,000 right now in Washington State. So the whole country is to some degree experiencing that. With regards to what the city can do to get homes to be more affordable, a rising tide floats all ships. And so the best thing we can do is get more inventory on the market. That's, at the end of the day, that's the single biggest step forward that we can make. So before you guys, we didn't have to bring you this resolution. It's below the $30,000 cap, but we did want council to have discussion, and we do want the public to be aware that the city is very much focused on solving the housing problem. So the task order before you tonight is just going to be to provide for an examination of the road, the water, and the sewer that will be necessary to build the subdivision.
Is there any discussion from council, any questions? We're ready for a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2022-020. Wells?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-021. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-021 is authorizing the city manager to execute task order number 2734.181 with R&M Consultants for the rezone and replat of the proposed Hemlock subdivision, physical address 911 Hemlock Avenue, legal description T1 North R, 1 West, actually, I'm not sure that means north, T1NR, 1W, SEC 34, Seward Meridian, SW 0870012, Fort Raymond sub replat number 1, lot 12A, in an amount not to exceed $56,907 and appropriating funds.
I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-021.
A second.
And I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Bickman is going to present on this.
Good evening, council members. So this task order is basically do kind of two things. First is currently as the parcel stands, it's connected to the bike park, and so we actually need to, so that we can move forward in the future with the sale of that property, we need to make it so it's two parcels. One is the bike park by itself, and then one is the property to be developed on that upper parcel. And then the next one would be to rezone that from what it is right now into R1, which we feel is the best zoning to kind of get the most that we can for that and provide housing for people here. So happy to answer any questions.
I mean, just to triple state it, the bike park is not included with this. So the bike park that was built by volunteers that's set in place, that will remain.
Yeah. We would not need a rezone if we're getting rid of like the whole type of thing. Yeah, so we're just rezoning it so there's the two parcels, so we keep the bike park and then look at that to sell and develop.
And then looking at the final concept, which is not, we'd still have to have the plat come before us, correct?
Yeah, you have to have the plat come before you, and then the other thing that too is we also need to do like the geotech will come first as well, and they can kind of figure out, does this plat really work on the ground underneath? Do we have proper drainage and those types of things? And so this is kind of like the best case scenario that we're looking at. There may be some reduction depending on if they have to shift things around a little bit. But we're going to be doing geotech when the snow comes off, and that'll kind of give us like tell us what we need to do if we need to modify that plan at all at that time.
And that, so when that plat comes before us, then we'll see the actual easements and the property lines and all that. And that will come before council for final approval, correct? Okay. Any other questions? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-021. Wells?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
I'll just check, does anyone need a break? Usually I'm bad about checking. Are we good to keep going? We'll do a couple more. Okay, Resolution 2022-022, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-022 is authorizing the city manager to purchase a used steamer truck and accessories in the amount of $95,238.71 and appropriating funds.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-022.
I'll second.
And that will be found starting on page 226 of your packet, and we'll turn over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and turn over to the Public Works Director.
Thank you. This is fairly, I think, well explained in the packet. It's a steamer truck, which the steamer truck we currently have is old, and it's broke down. It's just not doing what we need. What we use it for is steaming culverts. Sometimes a sewer line that's on the city area, but typically it's usually the culverts that are under the roads that we're having to keep from the flooding issues. Sometimes it'll be our storm drains that we'll have to start steam down to get those thawed out. We put this in the budget 3 years ago with the 2019-20 budget. It was set up for 2020 to be purchased in 2020. We weren't able to find one then. We continued it on into this budget. we're able to keep looking for it. We've gone through several different avenues. We'd like to get the steam truck all pre-built, but the only ones we're finding are in Canada, and they're close to $250,000 for the same type of a system. So what we're looking at is similar to what was done in this one years and years ago with the old one, was to retrofit with the steam unit inside of it. It'll pull the steam unit inside. This is an insulated box truck, which that's one of the criteria we had to have to keep it, or we have to re-insulate it ourselves. But the price was better. We included a couple of prices we found on the internet. As he was going through, Jason and our department had put many hours into looking for a suitable truck and the equipment to make it work correctly, and did a wonderful job on it. I think just finding the right truck, we were a little dismayed that the shipping was as much as it was, but we looked around at the others, and that's pretty much where we're at right now in the time we are. So I take any questions if we had any more.
Councilmember West?
Yeah, I do have some questions. So first, so I've got about 5 questions, okay? Sure. So the first one, I guess, is, it wasn't that long ago that I asked our city attorney about purchasing used parts for our current vehicles, and the city attorney, my note says that using used parts for city vehicles may or may not be too high of a liability. So we suggest, and this was in regards to the new Ford F-150 trucks, to replace the Dodge trucks. And says, so made a suggestion to purchase new trucks. So my question is this is a used truck, correct? So if the box truck is used, what does our attorney say about that type of liability? If we shouldn't put used parts in used vehicles that we already own and it's a liability, why is it not a liability to purchase a used vehicle? Is my first question about that.
Well, I think on the liability, it's the same as you purchase any vehicle. I mean, when you go to purchase a vehicle, there isn't a warranty on it, obviously, because it is a used vehicle. But when you look at what we've got, we did a very similar thing just like last year, I believe it was, with a Vector truck. We have a truck that's going to be used limited time. And what we're trying to do is also look at our fiscal picture of what we've got available for our funding, and to buy a used truck that's just used in the winter, and that's what this steamer truck will be. It's a need, but then to put the money, the $250,000, $300,000 out, it makes it much harder to take. And so with the limited use of this, I'm not sure the liability that you're getting into, this is different than saying used parts into a truck. It's just a used vehicle that comes as an as-is vehicle, and we're responsible to do the repairs if there are repairs on it. But I'm not sure where you're getting at with liability.
Okay, so, and you said that there wasn't a warranty, but then I was looking on to page 231, which Jason supplied, and it's hard to read, but I believe it says US warranty $995. Am I not, is that not right?
On page 231.
231. If you look at the spreadsheet item amount, the last item says ETCH space US warranty, and I believe that says $995. So my question was, are we paying for a warranty, and if so, what is it?
I believe that's the title warranty.
That's the title warranty?
I believe it, and I have to check into that and get back, but I believe that's the title warranty.
Okay, so then, this is a used vehicle at 13,144 miles. And you just said that it gets used very minimal, correct?
Correct.
Do we have any idea the amount of miles per year that we would put on a vehicle? It's next to nothing.
It's very slim on our end. We're more hours. When you have a steamer truck or a Vector truck, you're parked on site, but it's running.
But it's running.
So it's your hours that are getting you rather than your miles.
So I was having a hard time
Did you
seeing.
have a follow-up then?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I do have a follow-up regarding the hours.
Yeah.
I know with a diesel truck, it's much easier to let them idle and put hours and hours and hours on the engines. but I believed, and I could be wrong, but this is a gas V10, is that correct?
I believe so. I'd have to verify that on there.
So idling hours are an issue, whether it's a diesel truck or it's a gas truck, but it's obviously more of an issue with a gas vehicle. But if we don't use it that often, then it's not that big of a deal. Which brings me to the question of, so I went online and to find this exact same box truck and found 4 of them with between 80,000 and 100,000 miles, under $35,000 with the same engine, the V10.
What year?
2013.
Okay. There's one big thing right there. What were the insulated beds on?
So that I did not know about the insulated. I didn't see that this was an insulated one when I was reading it. So I was just noticing that it was a box truck, so I was looking for similar box trucks so that I could do a price comparison, because I didn't feel that we used it a lot. So I couldn't understand why we would need a used truck with such minimal miles on it if for 60-some, $52,219, when we can find one with up to 80 to 100,000 miles for 30 to 35,000. And then, but I don't know if the ones that I looked at were insulated. And then I have just one other thing.
Go ahead.
When it comes to the shipping for $14,650, is this being shipped by barge or is it being driven up? And how many shipping quotes did we get?
We got 3 shipping quotes, I believe is what Jason said on it. And it's being shipped by truck to Seattle and barged up from there.
Barged up's not being driven up, okay.
Is there any other questions for administration or any discussion?
No, thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2022-022. Calhoun,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Hoseda,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is resolution 2022-023. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-023 is providing for the authorization, sale, issuance, and delivery of City of Seward, Alaska electric revenue bond in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $19,500,000 to finance certain electric facility improvements of the city, fixing certain details of said bond, and providing for related matters.
I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-023.
I'll second.
And that information starts on page 243 of the packet, and I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought that I would maybe step back in time a little bit to where we started, to where we are, and some other information. At the beginning of the process, the city financials were sent to the bond council, our financial advisors in the bond bank. And then the information was reviewed and determined that the bond payment could be made. And when we started the budget process, I quickly became concerned about the revenue needed for the bond payment and asked the then Deputy Finance Director to confirm with the bond bank the financials that were set. How did they come up with the calculation? Because in the budget, the revenue expenses, it was like, I'm not seeing the same thing. So the financial advisors verified that that they and the bond bank are aware that the transfer that's to the general fund, and stated their expectations that should the generated revenue not be sufficient to make the payment, the general fund transfer will be reduced to make the payment. And I did provide that information to the council via email in November, and then I believe it was stated at one of the budget work sessions. And so that information, came forward, and then the council adopted Resolution 2021-104, which allows for reimbursement of certain expenditures in connection with the project, and that gave us the ability to, I'm going to say, not in the technical finance world, but language that to encumber the funds that we can reimburse ourselves. And The purchase approved were through resolutions 100 and 101, and they are reimbursable. We have not actually expended funds through those resolutions because supply issues and those sorts of things. We have not actually received any of the funding. Today I did spend time going through the CAFR, the cash flow reports and the net positions, and I have the information on all of that regarding the electric enterprise fund and our fund balance and that information. And I do have that information. I can expand on that if needed. The bond amount, there was an increase, as you know, when we originally talked about the bond amount was 18 million, and then it rose to 19.5, as you can see in the resolution. And this came about from a recommendation for both of our, we have two actually financial advisors regarding bonds. And since the project amount is over the bond amount, so the base bond amount is 18 million, and then the increase has to do with funding the required reserve. There's a required reserve amount, and it is, we don't hold it. It actually goes to BNYM, which holds also our reserve amount for the other electric bond and the 2016. One of the financial advisors explained that they were working with Wells Fargo, and I should back up and say that the bond bank is working with Wells Fargo for all the other municipalities as well. And they ran all the stress tests and spoke of coupon strategy and pricing, and the pricing includes a 50 BP cushion for market improvement. All of this was just provided to me. And that the projected debt service with the with the 19,500,000 pricing could be, because we do not have the firm numbers, which would be the yearly payment, 1,117,000 as opposed to 1,162,000 for the 18 million. The council adopted resolution 2021-087, which appropriates $577,195,000 that will be used to replace the aging and deteriorating transmission power poles and support assemblies as part of the Nashua project. So that was appropriated for that. So this is where how we got where we are. And I do want to say that, recognizing that really I feel like a lot of things have changed where we started from as financially, supply chain issues, the increased cost of labor, increased cost of material, and because these things are changing, I think a compromise can be made. And one thing I do want to, and we can expand on that compromise here in a moment, but one thing that I do want to state is I did ask the bond council what would happen if the resolution tonight was postponed for whatever reason. The bond bank would move on without us. In other words, there would not be any funding this year. We are at deadline at this meeting. So today there was also a meeting held with Councilmember Calhoun, who has an amendment, and that we did talk about with the director, with Rob, and I think maybe if he chooses to make the amendment, then he can do that, and we can also have Rob come up to talk about the technical aspect of this project.
Great. I'll bring it to the dais if there's any comments or questions or any motions to be made.
I would like to make a motion to amend this resolution, and I'll try to make it as clear as I can, for not to exceed amount of the electric revenue bond of $10 million, that the reserve sub-account be funded with available cash of the city rather than bond proceeds, that the capitalized interest sub-account shall be funded with available cash of the city rather than bond proceeds, and that this bond will cover what I will call Phase 1, Phase 2, and the purchase of all the materials and transformers for Phase 3.
I'll second. So just, I think so if that motion and the clerk has that motion in its entirety to that exact language, then you can work with the clerk to how that needs to be incorporated into this.
What I'll do is I'll send this information to the bond council, who will update the resolution, because they wrote it and they know where this all needs to be inserted.
Okay.
Because it is their technical language.
Thank you. So I'll let you speak to your motion.
The reason that this sort of got started was, and we're going to talk about it in the next, I think, one of the upcoming resolutions, the next one, noticed that for the labor total for Phase 1 and Phase 2, and then, which is number 1 Nash Road, and then the Seward Highway transmission, that labor cost in the proposal that we had was about 1.9 million and change. The resolution we're going to be looking at next calls for that amount to be 2.9, almost 3 million. So we're already $1 million over this original look. And if we, my feeling is if we bond the entire thing, we may not get 2/3 of the way or halfway through this project and be out of money. Just with the cost of labor, with the cost of everything, is really out of question. Nash Road, and I'm not trying to stop, let people understand, I'm not trying to stop any of this. What I'm trying to do is break it into parts so that we can look at our funding and not put $19.5 million on the ratepayer's shoulders for 30 years when that amount might not even get us through half the project or 2/3 of the project. And so my thought is to break it up. Once we get through Phase 1, Phase 2, we'll have the materials ready to go for Phase 3. Then maybe we can look at an updated rate study so that everybody will know, once we get there, what their rates are going to be and then what could happen further down the road. And that's my reasoning for coming with this at this time.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to that?
Well, to the points that Councilmember Calhoun makes, from the electric department's perspective, our priority is really the infrastructure that needs to get fixed the earliest. That would be Nash Road, the Seward Highway project, and as Councilmember Calhoun was saying, as long as we can order the transformers and the materials we'll need as we look further out into the future, our goal is to begin Nash Road this year and the Seward Highway project, and then transformers are going to be 2023 mid to late summer. So we can push some of that work into 2023. So breaking up the revenue bond, the way it's being proposed, I think we can make that work.
Madam Mayor, I did want to state that, from our side of this project, I absolutely believe that it really truly needs to go in its entirety at some point. What is coming back on the increased labor costs has me concerned that if we bond for the entire amount, we could run out of money. We could, we may not. And it's that uncertainty right now that we have some very critical that we need to start right away, and then we can finish that, step back and see where we are, and then either bond for the rest, a loan for the rest. We are pursuing grant funding too, maybe in the infrastructure bill. So all those things are still on the table. And again, I do really believe that this project needs to be completed, and but I think a good compromise is going this route.
Yeah, and to address the overage that we're looking at currently on labor, I think we have an opportunity as we look to 2023, when we start working in the substations themselves, that we possibly can make up that difference of what we're seeing in phase 1 and 2.
Councilman Bryson?
I was just going to ask about a rate. I mean, will this be detrimental to any kind of a good rate, bad rate? Would this
For the bond bank itself. So we are combined with the other municipalities, and so because we're combined, we actually do get a good rate. There's an up to amount. There's some projections that it's quite a bit lower than that. I don't have that rate, but this does not affect the other municipalities. I did ask that today as well, by lowering it. Now, there would be an effect if we came out all together. There would be an effect on the others. But by lowering it there should not be an effect, not just to us, but the other involved municipalities.
Okay.
So let's, if there's no further discussion, we're just on that same motion, so let's vote on the motion that's on the table.
Voting on the motion to amend, as Councilmember Calhoun described. McClure?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Osinga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
So now the main resolution is back on the floor, and thank you for going back through what we've had before us with the number of work sessions and council meetings, and I think we all realize that there's some key infrastructure that needs to be repaired. Are there any further comments or explanation from administration? Any further questions from the council? I guess I'll just close up that, I do appreciate administration that puts the effort in to make sure that our infrastructure is kept in such a way that our businesses can continue to thrive and people can turn their lights on, and also the forward thinking on what we need for infrastructure planning in the future is a nice refreshing change. So, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-023 as amended. Calhoun?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Osinga?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-024. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-024 is authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Sturgeon Electric Company in an amount not to exceed $2,997,093.46 to complete critical electric transmission infrastructure work along Nash Road and a half-mile section of DeGraff Road to Fort Raymond Substation and appropriating funds.
And I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-024.
I'll second.
Getting on page 267 of the packet, I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yep.
If you'll explain.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Over the past year, we had 3 or 4 occasions where we talked about the need to fix our infrastructure for the electric transmission. The reasons for that, primarily the age. We've got a lot of our transmission equipment that is beyond its service life today. We also have the opportunity while we're doing this to upgrade the voltage capacity of the system from the 69 kV that it is today to 115 kV. Plans to do that actually were done back in the 1980s. Okay? As we look at all of the different phases of the projects, we're looking at 5 to 6 years to complete everything. But with this one, we recently completed the invitation to bid for phase 1. And part of that, as we talked about already, Nash Road, that's going to be almost a complete rebuild of the system. And you're talking about the poles, the lines, the pole top assemblies, the insulators, and other related hardware. The system on Nash Road today is at a point that it could fail at any time. So it is something that we absolutely should do. We've got power poles on Nash Road that were installed back in the 60s. Okay? The other is the half-mile section from DeGraff Road to Fort Raymond. This is another rebuild and upgrade. If you look at the line today coming in from Moose Pass, it's already constructed to 115 kV, with the exception of this last half mile. So with this upgrade, we will have the ability to have a much more robust transmission system coming into Seward. And as we look at future growth, as we talked about development, residential development, we will be able to do that with no problem. Tonight, we're seeking approval from council to make Sturgeon Electric Company the contractor for the project. They came in with the lowest bid as well as the most comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Are there any questions for administration? Go ahead and call for a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2022-024. Wells?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is, does anyone need a break? Can we keep going? Okay. Next on the agenda is other new business items. I pulled the minutes off the consent agenda. Before you, you have substitute laydown amendments. And I'll move to approve the substitute laydown minutes that you have before you.
I'll second it.
And the only reason that these are substitute minutes is I just asked that my declaration of conflict of interest just be repeated, or just be included verbatim in the minutes. So that's the only change to them, from the minutes that you have in your packet to the minutes before you. So that is why we're adopting substitute minutes instead of the minutes in your packet. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Voting on the approval of the January 24th substitute minutes. Calhoun?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you. And then if you look on your packet, the next item is schedule a joint work session, page 285. This is our annual work session with our boards and commissions. There's 2 dates that the clerk has outlined as potential dates, March 14th or March 28th. So if folks want to look at their calendar, if there's a preference out there.
Those are council meeting
nights,
days.
yep.
Yeah, I'm okay with either.
Yeah,
I cannot make the 14th.
So we could shoot, if it doesn't matter, we could do March 28th. Does that sound good? And looking at the potential schedule, it's pretty standard. We do HP, then PACCAB, then P&Z for the longest. Is there any switcheroos on that?
And how long do we use?
So the first
For
two,
the-
HP is half an hour, PACCAB's half an hour, and then planning and zoning is 45 minutes. So we'll start at 5. So, would you like me to make a motion? No. We're good? Okay. Next on the agenda is determine a tabulation team for the city manager's evaluation on February 28th. So before you, in these envelopes, you'll have hard copies of the review documents, and then also the city manager's self-review is in this packet. I will say, so when, well, you'll see later, but when the vice mayor and I do the tabulation team, it goes really quickly with this new format.
The new form really helps.
Yeah, so.
It's not a bad thing to volunteer for.
Yeah, so I think we're looking for 2 people. Any takers?
I'll do one.
Yeah.
Should we have
Might
like,
be someone there to help us with this.
how about, so I've done them a lot. Should it be the 3 of us and then we'll go through it together really quick? Does
Yeah,
that sound
just
good?
so we know what you did.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
With this new form, I feel better.
Yep, that sounds good, and
Okay.
we'll,
And then maybe I'll go through it with the
Yep.
next group.
and yeah, we'll switch off. Okay, that goes good. So Madam Clerk, it'll be Councilmember Wells, Councilmember Osenga, and myself. And so we'll start touching base with emails.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is discuss providing a letter of support for the statewide bond proposal, and that's on page 364. And I will speak to that once I get there. So, as you can see in the agenda statement, the governor put forward his budget for fiscal year 2023, and one of his items included a bond package. And that bond package is first going through the legislature, and then it will, if it's approved by them to go for a vote, it won't go out to a vote to the public until the spring election. We had the governor's community outreach coordinator, Bert Cottle, reach out for the city, asking for just support of the bond package going out to a vote. Our lobbyist was asking the city if that was something that we could provide at the governor office request. And I just want to preface a couple things with this. This is just saying that we believe that the bond should be passed by the legislature so it can be voted on by the people of Alaska. So by the time that election happens in the spring, we will have a much better idea on the federal funds and how those all were allocated through the state to the communities, and we will know, or the voters will know better, if this bond package is even necessary. So there's a question about taking on more debt when these federal funds might be available. What this at least does is just kicks it that much further down the road so that we know if we have the federal funds covering many of these projects, then the voters will have that information and be able to vote the bond package down. I think at this point, it's a waiting game, and the governor just would like to make sure that, depending on how those federal funds are allocated, that some critical infrastructure projects do happen in Alaska. So I'll move that the council approve a letter in support of the 2023 General Obligation Transportation and Infrastructure Bond, allowing the bond to come before the citizens of Alaska as a ballot measure.
I'll second that.
So, I can't speak to this any more than what the governor's put out or, what's been shared with us with the projects. There are two major projects in the Kenai Peninsula. There's some key projects around the state that could be important to fund, but again, hopefully by the time of the election, we'll know if federal funds cover those bond packages. So I can answer questions to the best of my ability, or people can speak in support or against. It's just having not even a resolution, but just a letter in support at this time. Okay, Madam Clerk, can we call for a vote?
Voting on the motion to provide a letter of support. Demas?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Terry? Yes, that motion is approved.
Thank you. Next in the packet, we just have informational items and reports. We'll not speak to them unless you have questions, but there's the November 2021 Providence financials, and then there's the State of Alaska Division of Elections educational flyers on some ranked choice voting information. Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Time's limited to 5 minutes. There's still some people here. Hearing and seeing none. Next is council administration comments. I'll kick it off with administration.
I just want to thank the council for, I know that kind of pulled a big pivot on the electric bond, but I really appreciate your attention to all of this and to making that pivot. I think it's the best thing to do in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with Councilmember Wells.
Well, happy Valentine's Day. It's my anniversary, so I gotta get home. Some say I made a mistake getting married on Valentine's Day, but I say you only have to remember one day. But thank you all so much for answering my questions when I have them, and even if they seem, silly or not worthwhile, I appreciate it very much. It helps me be able to answer questions for the public when they ask me. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, great week, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Calhoun?
I just want to thank the administration and the clerk's office for all their help and support. Getting myself kind of back in this mode after so many years and feeling a little bit behind the power curve for a while, but maybe catching up. Thank you very much. I want to thank the guys that are working hard. I know we've had some major snow dumps going. Doug, your guys, I know they're doing a good job. They're doing yeoman's work, and everybody else. I want to thank Rob with the electric department for all of his hard work putting this stuff together for us. And thank all of you guys for all your support and education sent my direction is always a great thing. Happy Valentine's Day, and I don't worry about that too much because my anniversary is on St. Patrick's Day.
Nice. I love it. Councilmember Osenga?
I just ditto with what's already been said. Thanks to administration, thanks to this council for everything. I mean, it seems like everything's been going really well. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, and be safe out there.
Councilmember Lux?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to administration for all your work on housing. It's long overdue. It's a huge problem, and everybody's a little bit frantic about it and has a lot to say about it. And so I just really encourage people to reach out to us, pay attention because there's things going on, and they're happening. Administration's actually listening to us. So I think that's a really good thing, and now's the time to be heard. So come to the meetings, and I appreciate everyone that reached out to me regarding everything. There's so many smart people in this community, even just right outside of the community that can't be a part of council. And it's really important to me, at least, to hear from them because I need to hear what, all of these people that are investing in our community want. So keep that up, call me, text me, whatever, find me. And then I also wanted to comment on Carol Griswold's comment about having to rein in short-term rentals. I think that there's going to be a time soon that we're going to have some talks about putting some restrictions on maybe some of these new developments on, even if it is R1, R2, we might not want any B&Bs in these. I don't know, but I know there's people that want to talk about it. So I think that it's time to, start kind of talking about some of that stuff. Other than that, congratulations to Cindy Eklund, and thank you so much for all your service. I really enjoyed working with her on planning and zoning. And that's all. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Well, I want to give a shout out to the police and fire departments for their willingness and eagerness to host field trips for Sprouts Preschool. It was well appreciated by the Sprouts, and it's just one of those things. Any contact you have with city people that might help kids out someday, it's a very positive thing. I was really excited about that. Congratulations to Cindy, and more congratulations that she's taken over everything I used to do. I'm not sure who followed in whose footsteps, but what we really, 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 really need is someone to step forward and be at least on the Borough Planning Commission from Seward. Seward needs representation. It's a fun thing to do, and now you don't even have to drive over. So I will reiterate, and it's on the flyer, if you want to hear more about it, either Cindy or I could tell you about all the excitement of Borough Planning Commission. And also I want to give a shout out to the good people of Seward, because just in this last week I've had 3 instances now of people jumping in to help me shovel various driveways I'm obligated to shovel. And it's just, I can do it, but it's just such a neat thing to have people just spontaneously, instead of just driving by and watching me shovel, they actually come out and help, and that's just really nice. And I want to wish everybody what's left of Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. I wanted to just bring something up during my comments. I know that we're still reporting COVID numbers daily, and my suggestion would be moving to weekly COVID numbers. So I know the state is maybe every other day, but maybe that would be less of a burden on the clerk daily and just move to weekly. Is there any objection with that? And then I wanted to let the council know that I will be attending Winter AML. And then Norm Regis, our harbor master, is down there, and I'll be joining him for some legislative visits on our harbor items, just so we can go in as a team and attend those meetings together. I wanted to thank Councilmember Calhoun for his hard, heavy lifting. I know a lot of us do things to make things better ahead of time, working with administration, and this was huge tonight. And then I just wanted to say it was wonderful spending Valentine's night with my favorite people. A lot of the community called me all day, so it was wonderful to talk to people, and then having such a, people really care about this community, and it was very evident with what we're working on and trying to make the best decisions. So I appreciate everyone's time and attention, and I hope that maybe moving things around with our website, just bringing things up front, but if there's ever any questions, our clerk is available, people have all our numbers, and I think everyone's more than willing to help, and just appreciate people's time and attention when, life is hard enough to kind of live. So with that, we're gonna go into executive session to evaluate the city clerk, but we will take a 5-minute recess. So the executive session will only include council and the city clerk. And we will be back in that executive session at 9:20.
Break.